All right, welcome to the Nonprofit Coach. This is our webinar, Taking Care of You, Personal Financial Planning.
Oh.
I'm Elizabeth Finlayson. I'm the CEO and lead coach of the Nonprofit Coach, and our mission is to create a fairer, more equitable world filled with empathy and beauty. And we do this by supporting our nonprofit clients with strategic planning, fundraising, board training, and more. So let's get into today. Okay, these are just some of our services that we have. We do coaching with organizations. If you just need a little bit of information that helps you get best practices into your ongoing fundraising and work, but we also do capital campaigns, grant writing, strategic planning, and more. If you feel that what you really need is for your board to grow in their skills, we do retreats and webinars and workshops with them. And you can find us online in things like our online grant writing course. And of course, we do these free bi-monthly webinars, and you can find our old videos on YouTube. So with that, I do want to give a little bit of context on our bi-monthly webinar series so you know what to expect and what this is. And I know some of you come on a regular basis, so bear with me. But basically, we use this time to do a general topic overview or a deep dive into a specific slice of a broader topic. We often have guest speakers, as we're lucky to have today with Charniese Miller. But these are not meant to replace any paid training, services, consulting, coaching you'd have with me, Charniese, or anyone else. They're really meant to be a starting place. So with that, I will just say, I'll let Charniese actually go over her own bio, but I do want to say that I've had the pleasure to get to know Charniese and be completely impressed with her poise, her knowledge and expertise, and I've been lucky enough to benefit from some of her services. She and I met together to start talk about my personal finances, and what that really helped for me was to be able to see, even though I'd read some of the financial books and those things, to really represent myself to my personal finances versus the work finances I spend a lot of my mental space on, and to begin to think about it differently, think about partnership with my husband, and re-put together a budget, which I hadn't done in several years, and start looking at new goals for ourselves. Some of those things have really just been lingering in the back and hadn't really gotten the attention they deserved. And so I felt so lucky to have her expertise. And that's when I invited her to come and share that with all of you. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is we do a lot of these webinars to get better at our nonprofit work and supporting our nonprofits. But we know, those of us in the sector, that nonprofit people themselves don't always get the support that they need and don't always grow in the way that they need to because they've expended so much of that energy into their organizations. And so we wanted to use this webinar as just a time to refocus on yourself and do a little bit of self-care while you're looking at your personal finances. So with that, I'm going to let Charniese talk about her own experience.
Okay. Hi, everybody. First, I just want to say thank you, Elizabeth, for having me. I'm really excited to be here, as I'm really excited to do this work. So thank you all for joining us in this. So this is my bio here. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'm just going to talk about what drove me to have this passion. So like I'm finding many people have the same background of growing up in either having humble beginnings or not really having conversations about money with their parents or with their families. And so I think that, one, it's imperative for us to have this information. It's imperative for us to be financially educated, for us to live better lives and discover who we are as people. And so I work also in the nonprofit sector as a portfolio manager. So I am in community with you all. And so this is kind of near and dear to my heart to actually be presenting with you. And so I just want to say maybe a little bit more before we move on about just my own personal discoveries about my relationships with money. I think that that's kind of where it starts for people to really get committed and focused on their financial journey. Sometimes you have to look back to realize, why do you do the certain things that you do? Why are you a saver? Why are you a spender? Why do you avoid shopping? Why are you afraid to look at your credit score? and things like that. And sometimes people have some really interesting discoveries that they hadn't realized before because they never looked. And so for me personally, what I discovered about myself from years of saying that I don't like shopping, I actually used to say I hate shopping, any kind of shopping, grocery shopping being the worst. And what I found was that when I shop, it was complete overwhelm because I was doing a lot of mental calculation, trying not to overspend, trying to get within budget, or just not being able to get exactly what I wanted. You know, some things I have to leave at the store, and certain things I had to take the cheaper version of because I didn't want to spend the rest of it. And that shaped my experience of shopping. And so the story became, I hate shopping. And then I realized it has nothing to do with shopping itself. It had everything to do with money and how I thought about money and my relationship with money. And so I just wanted to start there just to get you guys jogging and thinking back to, you know, what was your relationship with money growing up? You know, what did you see? What did you learn from your family or your parents? Because I think that's a big part of how we relate to money, and how we relate to others with money. It's always a taboo conversation to have. People don't want to talk about it. And so I'm just trying to liberate all of us to get really educated about this and just discover who we are as people. I think that a lot of us tend to grow and get into areas of work and passion based on needing to earn. And I think that kind of separates us from who we truly are at the core and who we were born to be. And so if we can get ourselves financially free, we can discover who we are at the core and produce and make an impact in the world from our authentic selves. And that's why I do this work. Thanks. We can
Wow, that's phenomenal. I just want to say too, a lot of the work that I do with people working on fundraising is also getting back to those core issues around money, because it's hard to ask someone else for money when you're not really clear on your own stories, feelings, and background around that. So now I want to double recommend Charnese.
Okay, so our first question in the slide we have is, how can you save when you don't think you're making enough? First, I just want to impress upon you that saving is a priority. It's a must. It's something that we all have to do. If you're not doing, I'm going to encourage you to do it, even if it's just $1 a day. Sometimes it's just getting into the practice of saving. Some people think because they have a mountain of debt that they don't have enough to save or they don't earn enough to save. And those are the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And it's true if you believe it. But what you really want to do is just have a practice of saving, whatever you can. Like I said, if it's $1 a day, we're going to talk about what you can do to make sure that you have enough for an actual savings. But for this slide, I'm going to say that all you have to do is start. All you have to do is start, and you probably want to put your savings on autopilot. I feel like with more of my clients that I work with, it's better for them to have a system where it happens automatically, where they don't have to rely on themselves to remember to put some money away into savings. And so the question is, you're never not making enough. You can always save, regardless of where you are on your financial journey. Okay. Next slide, Elizabeth. Thank you. All right, so this is pretty much gonna be, I would say, the meat and potatoes of my presentation today. And I'm glad that we had the first slide asking, what do you do when you're not making enough? Because my philosophy hinges on the fact that I believe that there are steps to wealth building and financial freedom. And so I'm gonna ask that you all, if you don't already, get out a pen and a pad, because you might wanna take notes for this section. And I know this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch it, I think, and things like that. But I really want you to dig into this and then write down questions if you have, so that we can answer them at the end of the presentation. And so what I believe step one to your wealth building journey and financial independence journey is just cash flow. So we're going to talk about cash flow. So the last slide definitely segments into this, because we're talking about your earned income, how you earn money. So what you do for work, your dog sitting, or paper routes. I don't think people do that anymore, but however you earn money, this is what affects your cash flow directly. And so most people find after doing some sort of a budget that they may not be earning enough. or maybe they may be earning enough, or maybe they're earning just the right amount and breaking even every month. But we want to get clear about that with the cash flow and how we earn our money. And then that goes into managing expenses, but we can talk about managing expenses a little later. So step 2 is going to be the emergency fund. This is where saving comes into play. You want to have comfortably, as you guys may have heard, 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses saved in a saving account, an interest-bearing saving account. I know a lot of brick and mortar banks don't offer much interest on them, but I will advise you that online banks, I have my savings account at an online bank, gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of interest earning as opposed to earning nothing. But I will say that I recommend stopping at 6 months worth of expenses because you don't want your money collecting dust. You want to be earning on your income. And so once you have kind of that emergency fund established, the rest of that discretionary income is going to be used for investing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the emergency fund is just, for emergencies. And also it liberates you to be able to make different choices. If you don't like a job that you're currently at and do you want to explore other options and want to be able to leave, having 6 months worth of expenses will help with that. If you're roommating or living with a partner or a significant other and you decide that you want to separate and you don't want to share the expenses anymore, this gives you the liberation to be able to do that. And so it's just preparing for the unexpected. And so when you're starting your financial journey, after step 1, the first thing you want to do if you're not in debt is establish that emergency fund. And if you want to focus on debt, if you do have debt, even if it's just $1,000, get something just in case things, just go haywire and you need to take care of it. You don't want to go into further debt, taking care of unexpected expecteds. Step 3 is going to be your debt management. And so here is where I would impress on you to just get a budget. Start a budget, start tracking your spending, put down all of your expenses, all of your bills, the mortgage, your rent, your car note, your utilities, the phone bill, the cable, the gym memberships, if you have them, all of the things that you pay for on a monthly basis, and you get it into a budget and you start allocating your money where you want it to go every month. You have to consolidate and eliminate. There's a lot of editing that comes with doing the budget. I actually have a budget template that I build out and I sometimes personalize it for people. And so what I do is I want to get a good snapshot of where you are with your cash flow. So you just 1 month, put your earnings in there, put all of your expenses in there, all of the extra money that you spend. And then you, at the bottom, you will learn from the template if you are operating in a surplus or a deficit. And if you're in a deficit, which means that you're spending more than you're coming in, we definitely need to edit your budget and eliminate some things or cut some things or earn more money. We can burn this candle at both ends. But if you're in a surplus, then that means there is money we can allocate toward saving or money we can allocate toward investing. But the purpose of the budget is to, one, when you begin, see where you are and have a real conversation with yourself about what you need to do to get in shape, to propel yourself forward, and then monitor the budget that you created and make sure that you're committed to it. And that way you can be on your way to your financial freedom. Step 4 is going to be proper protection. So in this step, this is where you protect yours and your family's assets. You're protecting your income against loss. These are more so your insurances, your life insurance, your mortgage insurance, your car insurance. So by the time you get to this step, you've done all that hard work. You don't want something to come and take away all of your assets and all of your earnings at this point. So you want to make sure that you have the proper protections in place so that you can continue your wealth building journey. And then we're going on to step 5. Step 5 is where you're actually kind of building wealth. This is where I recommend that people hire a professional. And so you've done all the basics, step 1 through 4, that you can do on your own, and you're focused and you're committed and you're ready to go to the next level. Most people who aren't in the finance world, like myself, usually have a hard time with this on their own. So I say you're probably not ready to start paying someone to invest your money until step 5. And so if you want professional money management and you want to try to outpace inflation, This is where I say, get you a financial advisor to do so. If you feel like that's something that you can comfortably do on your own, I'm totally okay with that. But I wouldn't say hire anybody until we get to this step. Okay. And so step 6 is just about preservation. So once you've done all of the steps and you got your emergency fund, you got your cash flow in order, you're working on the budget, you got everything protected, you're working with someone that invest your money. Now you want to make sure that you're reducing taxation, and you're probably going to need your CPA for that, or an attorney that can help you with you're building your family legacy, your estate. You want to make sure that your money is going to be doing what you want it to do long and after we're gone from this lovely place. And so this is the 6 steps that I recommend toward building your wealth. It seems simple in this snapshot. It does take something, but it is very possible. And you don't have to live until retirement to get here. And we can talk a little bit more about that later, but I do believe that the first order of business for everyone is to get themselves independently, financially free and untethered from their 9 to 5 or whatever they choose to, how they earn. But you want to be able to work by choice and not by necessity. And so that's the goal. And let's talk about how we get there. We can go to next step, Elizabeth. Okay, what tools do you need to get yourself on the path to personal financial health? Okay, so tools, one, the budget template is something that everybody needs. It's probably the main tool and the most important tool in this whole financial journey business. But I would say more so than tools, just a way of being is more important. I think you should have knowledge, make sure that you're consistently learning about financial information, whether it's through books, whether it's through podcasts, whether it's through webinars like this one, listening to people who've been studying this for years, experts in the market, people who watch, monetary value and things like that. You want to make sure that on a regular basis, you're consuming content that's giving you the latest and greatest in the world of finance. I firmly believe that we use money as a form of currency today, but it could be something different 10 years from now. And so it's beneficial for everybody to have some way to tap into this information. And so that's probably the first thing that I'm going to say, a budgeting system. You want to have online access to all of your accounts, your savings accounts, your retirement accounts, wherever you hold money, you should be able, in this stage of the game, access it through technology so that you can check your accounts and what they're doing on the daily. I keep a lot of mine on my phone in one place. I really like mint.com. And you guys can write that down, and I can see all of my different accounts everywhere I have money. Even my stock accounts are in there on that one app. And I'm able to track my budgeting. I'm able to see what I have. And these are just tools so that you can monitor. Oh, my credit score is updated every single day on this app. So I have everything, even my net worth, all in the same place. And it helps me. And when you see it and you get into the habit of checking it, it really does become an exciting process because you can watch the change, the movements of your efforts. You can see your progress. And so you're excited to get up the next day to keep moving forward. It's almost like when you start seeing your the results from working out at the gym. You don't like going, but when you start seeing the results, you're like, you just really wanting to get back in there and keep it going. And I think that for myself and many people that I've worked with, they get so excited. I get text messages early in the morning, screenshots of people's credit score because it grew 30 points overnight, and they were just, really happy. And I'm happy for them. And that's why I do this work. So I would say that those are the tools. You want to be disciplined, committed. That's the other way of being. So in addition to having the knowledge, you have to work on your commitment, because there are some tips and tricks and hacks that I think are sexy and I recommend to people and they get excited about it, but it's not for the faint of heart. You really want to be committed to this journey and, don't get yourself into a worse situation than when you started. Next slide, Elizabeth. Oh, right into it. So tips and tricks. These are just methods that I wanted to highlight that I noticed work really well with people. I used some of them myself for budgeting and paying off debt and even using credit. And I'm gonna talk about using credit in just a second, but to focus on budget, Most of the financial gurus, if you haven't heard, say cash is king. You're able to negotiate better when you use your cash. Cash, not even just in the paper sense, but not having to finance something. You know, you usually can save a little bit on that car or that piece of furniture or anything if you've saved and you can pay for it without financing it. That's the philosophy behind cash is king. Dave Ramsey is famously known for the envelope system. I did this maybe right after college. And at that time, before now, it was the most I had saved in my entire life, you know, and so I'm a fan of it. I'm fascinated by it for people who are really just getting started on this journey and really nervous about using the technologies or using credit cards and using debit cards and following their budget systematically. The envelope system seems to work very nice. They pull out the cash that they need and they allocate all the expenses from shopping to groceries to gas, all in this envelope system. And if you underspend in one area, you can reallocate money to another envelope if you tend to overspend in that area. But the plan is to only use the money from those envelopes. Once they run out, that's it. That's all the spending that you have for that month. And it keeps you on track kind of automatically with your budget. So the only thing is it takes a little work in the beginning to set up all your envelopes. Some people have 20 envelopes and I'm like, goodness, you had a lot of spending categories in your lifestyle. And then there's the percentage budgeting, which is kind of my favorite at this point in the game. And it's the 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of all of your earnings should go towards your overhead of your lifestyle. So that's your home, your mortgage, your rent, your car, your utilities, your food, just things that are going to be fixed and consistent to living your life. That's what your life cost is. 30% is going to go to fun or miscellaneous items, entertainment, things that you want to enjoy. Maybe you want to get that personal trainer to help you out in the gym. This is where you're going to use that money to pay for those things. It's not necessarily fixed, it's more so flexible, but allocating 30% to that. And 20% is going to be your saving and investing. This is the money that you're going to focus on making sure that your money is growing and working for you and you actually achieve that financial independence that you're looking for. There are other rules. There's a 70 and 30. The 70 being your fixed cost, your housing and your food and your clothing and your utilities. And then the 30% being broken up to 10% going into savings, 10% to charity, and 10% to investments. So I would recommend writing that down and you can choose which percentage-based budgeting will work for you, but that's just an easier snapshot to help you break things up and have your money start to work for you. Paying off debt. I am aligned with most of the financial gurus to say that getting out of debt is going to be the most important thing to your financial journey after the budget. You kind of are working against yourself if you're holding a lot of debt and you're still trying to invest and you're trying to save and you're trying to earn. It is advantageous and very beneficial to you to get rid of it. Your net worth will increase and move up higher, not to mention your credit score will stay nice and healthy. And if we do this right, we will have enough money to pay for the lifestyles that we want without having to finance much of it. And so for focusing on paying off debt, this is where back on the other slide, I said the 3 to 6 months of expenses, you want to just kind of throw away $1,000 before you get to that 6 months if you have debt. If you are in debt, that is the priority. And so I'm going to talk about some of the methods that you can use to pay off your debt. The first one is one of my personal favorites also. It's called the snowball method. And so the snowball method basically focuses on your smallest debt that you have. And you would, after paying that off, the excess that you would earn from that missing debt will go over into the next debt and the next debt. So let me see if I can get an example. If I have a debt from a cell phone company of $147, okay? And then maybe I have a debt of $1,200 on a credit card. And then maybe I have a debt of $5,000 from this furniture company. The snowball method would say, as fast as you can, if you can't even pay it off in a lump sum, in installments, pay off the smallest debt first. So the $147, I would say maybe I'm on an installment plan of paying $25 a month toward it. Once I'm done, I use all of my money to focus on, you pay the minimum on everything. You don't want to stop paying anything. Focus on this one smallest debt. And once that $147 is paid off, that $25 a month plus the rest that I was using to pay for everything else goes into the $1,200 debt now from the credit card. And so now, once that debt is paid off, both of those payments that I was using, the $25 a month and whatever the minimum was on the $1,200, I'm going to combine them and I'm going to tackle the $5,000. And so and that builds momentum, because when you see one debt cleared, you get excited about tackling the other. You know from your budget that you have the excess money. Instead of using it for more spending, you aggressively pay down the next debt. The next method is paying off high interest debt first. I recommend this because if you have debt of more than 10% interest that's costing you, that's a lot more money the longer that it lingers around that you're going to have to spend on it. And so the snowball method may work for building momentum, but paying high interest debt first allows you to save more money in the long run. So as opposed to paying the small 147, and if you have maybe a 12%, 13, 18% on that $5,000 debt, you're gonna come out hundreds and hundreds of more dollars. So I would reverse that at this point. So if you have debt and you know that you have one that's really high, you have a high interest rate, that's the one you want to tackle first. If your focus is to save more of your money. You can still do the snowball method if you feel like that's easier for you and you want to see your progress a lot sooner, because sometimes, and this is know thyself, some people aren't as patient. So you got a large debt and you're like, well, I've been paying, and I just see no end in sight. I'm not getting to a zero balance. So for those type of people, I say, handle the smallest one first. So that way you can, see the fruits of your labor a lot sooner and you can stay in momentum with working on it. And so I would say, you decide which method will work for you. High interest debt will save you more, but the snowball method would definitely show you your progress sooner for those what's the term for it? People who don't like delayed gratification, right? They want to see the work. And the last one is just consolidating. This is probably the one I least recommend, but if it makes sense for someone, I will go ahead and recommend it. Sometimes when you consolidate debt, you may end up with a higher interest rate than you started with from all the debt. And sometimes you may end up with a lower interest rate by consolidating it. And so sometimes it takes just looking at it and analyzing what you're losing versus what you're gaining for consolidation to see if it works for you. I'm not anti, but it does take a little bit more research when you go into deciding to consolidate. Usually, most cases, it makes more sense to keep the debt separate and pay them off separately. And so it just takes a little bit of work for making the decision, but that is another avenue for paying off debt that people use. And so credit, in this case, I'm talking mostly about your credit score, okay? And what goes into growing your credit score and keeping it nice and healthy. We all know these days that you have to use credit to purchase or finance anything. I would say people get really crazy about it, but if you don't have anything that you plan on purchasing in the near future, maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year and now, maybe a car, maybe a home, it doesn't matter as much for you to get crazy about your credit score. You want to keep a nice, healthy credit score over time, but honestly, I only focus on it when you are going to use it. So that's one thing. But the other thing I want to talk about, what goes into it, is just here listed on the screen. Making monthly and on-time payments on your installment loans and other utility loans that report to your credit bureaus or all credit bureaus. It really hurts you to be late. It really hurts you to miss a payment. So if you got to put things on auto pay, that's what you would have to do in this case to make sure that your credit score either grows or maintains or stays in that nice, healthy rate. Keeping utilization below 10%. This is my personal philosophy. A lot of financial gurus say 30%. I found that 30% kind of stagnates your score. You don't really see much growth when you just hang around at the 30%, but staying below 10%, it actually makes an astronomical difference. And this has been, tested and tried and true. But what you have in your favor is you can burn this candle also at both ends. So most people think that keeping their credit utilization below 30% means that they have to pay off debt. And that is true, but that is not the only thing that you have to do to get your utilization low. What you're doing while you're focusing on paying off your debt, you also want to focus on increasing your credit availabilities. What do I mean by that? So your overall availability across all your credit cards or all of your installment loans make up your total utilization amount. So if you have 3 cards, 4 cards, you will add up the total limit on all those cards, and that's your complete utilization window, right? So you could have 10,000 across all cards, 5,000 across all cards, 50,000 across all cards. And so your debt based on all of those could either be half that. So let me try to get an example for it. Let's just say 10. Let's say $10,000. You have 3 credit cards worth a total amount of $10,000. Okay, and across all of those cards, you may have $5,000 of debt that you need to pay off. So you're at 50% utilization. You want to get it down to 30. Most people will say, okay, I need to pay off $2,000 of my debt to get to 30%. But if you get one more credit card and I don't know, in $2,000, right? Once you add that and now you have a $12,000 utilization total, your utilization ratio automatically goes to 30% and you haven't paid any debt. Okay. So that's the both ends of this. Sometimes people really don't have the extra to really focus on paying the extra. And I say, well, what about calling up one of your companies and asking them to increase your credit limit? That will help your utilization score. And the advice that I got before I went to college was to never let them increase your credit limit. But that's because we don't trust ourselves with money. We think we're going to overspend and max it out, but it actually benefits you to have more credit availability than you use. And before you know it, you'll be down under that 10% without paying off debt. So every year, I would say, call up your credit card company if you've been doing well to say, hey, I've been paying on time and making my monthly payments. Do you mind increasing my debt or increasing my limit and availability or purchasing a new card? And so the other thing is watch your inquiries. When you go to finance debt, people are pulling either hard or soft pulls on your credit. So you want to make sure you keep those down to maybe three to 4 a year or every 6 months. If your credit score is pretty healthy, it only takes a couple of points, but if it's not, then that really could hurt. Having a strong credit history, that's just how long you've been in the game, with having installment payments and debts to your name, and then using your credit cards. This is another popular opinion that I have that people tend to like. And I coined this phrase that your credit cards give you sort of PPP. That is protection, points, and perks. And so I've listened to other financial gurus and they speak against using credit cards, get rid of credit cards. I believe in leveraging them. So every year I take an all expense lodging and flight paid vacation on points that I've earned from just doing my normal expense spending on my credit cards. I would advise you to be very careful. Now, I've recommended this to some people and they haven't quite gotten down the science of paying off their credit cards every single month. And so they constantly get themselves into trouble and overspending. So I would only say use this trick when you have gotten really disciplined and committed about your budgeting and your spending. But this also helps with budgeting. Before, I would have, I don't know, let's say 5 or 6 bills dates that I would have to keep in my head to make sure that I pay on this certain date, where I got to have this much amount of money in my bank account because this bill is going to pull on that day. And so I don't want it to overdraft. And I was just, all of these things. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can earn points and I can have my credit card pay for every single expense that I have. And the only bill I need to be concerned about is the credit card bill. And so every time I get paid, I'm making my credit card payment. And so the credit card is paid for every month because I was going to spend that amount of money anyway. And I'm also earning my points in the background and getting my perks from the credit card, whether it's a travel card or a cashback card or whatever suits your lifestyle, the gas card. At least, you're going to spend this money anyway. Why not get something or earn something for reward for your good work? And so I usually recommend people who are really focused, really serious, really disciplined to get into the credit card game. My credit cards are big enough to handle all of my bills, the ones that I can pay with them. And then I just have that one payment to make every month, and it makes my budgeting and my life much easier and much simpler. And if you have questions about that, we can talk about them in the end. I'm going to go to the next slide. Another question, how can you use your personal budgeting to support your values and goals? Okay, so here I am going to recommend that everybody do a values assessment. Most people think they know what their values are. Everybody says, I value family, they value their spirituality or religion, they value health and fitness, and all of these wonderful things that most of us will probably say. But in actuality, our lifestyles don't really add up to what we say our values are. And so I am going to give all of you an assignment for the next week. So the next 7 days, how you discover what your values and your goals truly are. You follow the money and you follow your time. And so you track every day, what do you spend your money on? What are you really spending on? And where are you spending the most time? And that's going to tell you what your values are. Not to make you wrong about anything, but just to show you or give you clarity of what your values actually are and how you can start moving or making some adjustments to getting to have your daily lifestyle match what you think or what you say or what you want your values to. For example, if I had a client whose number one value was health and fitness. And so we did this assessment and looked at her timesheet, and she only been to the gym once in the whole week. And it was just like, so is health and fitness your number one priority? Is that what you truly value? Because that's not what you're doing with your time. You're actually working with, you know what I mean? Or maybe you're spending time with family a little bit more. And none of those things are wrong, but it's just getting clear about what you value. And so once you get clear about what your values actually are and realign your lifestyle so that your spending matches that, you got a gym membership, you're buying healthy food, and also that looks like you value health and fitness. You're at the gym 3 times a week. Maybe you have a personal trainer. I can see from your personal financial statement that you value health and fitness. If it's nowhere on there and you say it, it's a mismatch. So that's the first thing that I want to say. And so once you have that down, you add it to your budget. Spending time with my family is a value. Health and fitness is a value. Getting financially free is a value. So I should be able to see that in my budget. What line items are aligning with what I say that I value? What are my goals? What's the lifestyle that I want to live? And it's another point that I want to spend just a little bit more time on right now is people usually just want to be rich. They just want to have a lot of money and they don't have any idea what they want to do with it. You want to kind of visualize and imagine what kind of lifestyle you want to have. That doesn't always have to cost $1 billion or $1 million, or even anything close to that. You know what you like to do and what you would want to do. So dream as big as you possibly can. Maybe you want a vacation with your family 3 times a year. Maybe you want a vacation home. Maybe you want to send your kids to private school, or maybe you want to eat out 3 times a week. Whatever your ideal situation is, there's a number for it. And so once you do the imagining and the visualizing and playing around with your budget, maybe working with a professional or someone like myself to help you come up with what does that number cost me monthly? And how much does that cost me annually? And then how much would that cost me 20, 30, 40 years, of living? And so once we got that number, we can kind of work that back into our budgeting, the budget that we started with. And so we build in our line items to help us support where we're trying to go. And once our personal resources, our investments get to a point where they're earning us that monthly income to support that lifestyle, we've beaten the financial game. It really is that simple. And so that's my answer to this question. I could stay here all day, but I don't want to for the sake of time. So Elizabeth, next slide. Is financial freedom possible if you work in the nonprofit sector? Absolutely. Financial freedom is possible even if you don't have a job. It's a little harder, I will say that, but financial freedom is possible and everyone is deserving and worthy of it. And I think that it is the one job that we do have outside of the jobs that are earning us money is the job to getting us financially free. Okay, that's really what's going to liberate us to living the lives that we were meant to live. And that's going to help impact and have us living in a better world. Most of the problems that we all have and most of the misconnections and disconnects that we have with ourselves and with our relationships usually stem around the lack of money. And it's time to change that. If we are able to plug this hole that we're hemorrhaging from, what kind of world would we live in? Who would we be? We would all be different people. We really would. And if you truly believe that, you will put in the work to commit to this and learn all that you can and get yourself and your family financially free so that we can see a better tomorrow. Next slide. Okay, so I put together this personal finance checklist, and some of this in this list I haven't talked about in this presentation particularly, but if you have questions about them, I'm happy to answer. If you want to work with me offline, I'm happy to do that as well. But this is what you want to kind of check yourself up against to make sure that you are on the right track and maintaining the right track to reaching financial freedom. And so you have a budget with a deadline to be debt free. So there's a deadline to be debt free because you have put a system in place for paying off all your debt and by when. That's what that means. You contribute the amount needed to get the employer match on your retirement plan. I know all of you, or most of you, or many of you are nonprofit employers, and that may look different. Maybe you don't have a retirement plan with your money. Maybe your company doesn't match at all. But you want to be contributing to your retirement plan at any rate. If your employer does match, we don't leave money on the table, and we can spend time on that. You're maxing out a personal IRA. This is something that you can manage on your own. You can call up Fidelity or Goldman Sachs or I think it's Vanguard that, that you can actually set up your own personal IRA account and you can fund it yourself outside of your company. Whatever resources that we have available to us outside of our own personal doing, we should be using. You have a 750 plus credit score. You check your credit reports annually. Like I said, some people's biggest mistake is just not looking or being afraid to look. It really is simple when you know what goes into credit and what works. I've had people jump 89 points in a month just with a few tweaks, and not fraudulent. You have at least 6 months expenses in emergency fund, and you're debt free, and you're paying off your credit cards if you have them on time and in full. This is what you would grade yourself against. Next slide, Elizabeth. Okay, resources. This is just some stuff I put together, what helped me over the years when I started my personal financial journey. Some online resources if you guys want to check out who's the next MVP in the credit card game, or just different interest rates for savings account. You will go to NerdWallet, it's one of my personal favorites, magnifymoney.com, bankrate.com. Education online. I see one is cut off, but it's Investopedia, investor.gov, Oblivious Investor is another one of my favorites. And some of the basics, there's tons and tons and tons of books out there. But the starter pack for me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you want just a complete mindset shift of having your assets pay for your liabilities, that's a good book for that. A Random Walk Down Wall Street. I didn't mention, but I do have a financial degree from college, and I would say that book is probably the closest investment book that mirrors my education. So I recommend that book to people. And the newest one on the list is Broke Millennial. I am a part of that millennial generation, but I think Aaron Lowry did a really good job at breaking down just the intuitive details that one would need to know, from debt and student loans to earning money to investing. She really puts it in layman's terms. And it's kind of a fun read, and it gets you excited about where you're going in your financial journey. Next slide, Elizabeth. Okay, and that is the end of it. So if you guys took notes, if you wrote down your questions, now is the time to ask. I will be here answering them for you.
While people are gathering their thoughts for questions, I just wanted to say that, again, like having the pleasure of working with you, there are just things that you mentioned in here that I'd never seen anybody connect. All right, yes, you have values, you spend money, but how to map that out and tie it back in, that's just fascinating. And I have questions around it, but I'm going to let other people do that. I'm also going to check the chat because I see some things popping up.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there is a question of whether there will be a replay available soon. We will definitely put out a snippet of this workshop, but there'll also be opportunities to connect with Charnese, which we'll talk about soon. Roy mentioned that there's a great book on this topic called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. I had a values question myself, which is, when we have actual values, as you showed with our map, and when we have the values we state, like I would like to care more about health and fitness, and both my mind and my actions show otherwise. So do you have recommendations when somebody is like, actually, I know this should be a value, versus just like, what do I actually value for making that change?
Mhm. So one thing I tell people, if they're really serious about making that change, because only you know when you're ready, and then you hit them where it hurts. You just put your money where your mouth is. If I'm working with you on your budget, I should see in your budget that one of your values is health and fitness. So you are spending some of your earned money toward this value that you have, by whether it be a gym membership, whether it be one of those subscription services for healthy food, or whatever you feel like you need assistance with in that area, you are investing in it. So if I don't see that, whether in your time, because it's not always attached to money, but if it's in your time where you're showing up and health and fitness looks important to you, that should be something that you're doing throughout the week, or I can see it in your budget, in your line item. And typically people use that as the first one they want to cut when it's time to cut back on expenses. Oh, I'm taking the gym out. I'm not going back to this place no more either. And I was like, well, we can do that, certainly, but health and fitness isn't something that you highly value. And that's just the truth of it. And so if you really want it to become, and it's not, where do you make the investments? And 9 times out of 10, people value money over time. So once you start spending money towards something, it's like, okay, I guess I better use this because I paid for it, that type of thing.
Gary, I see you unmuted. Do you have a question?
Just a quick one. So, I run a not-for-profit. And by the way, thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. Got some really good stuff. So, my husband just recently retired. I'm going to be retiring in a couple of years, hopefully. But I got no money saved up, okay? I mean, I got a small savings account, and these tips are going to really help me. But when I worked for a different agency many years ago, I had a TIA CREFF account. And I think I still have, and I know I still have it because I get little statements from them. Now, so when you're talking about IRAs and things like that, I mean, should I like reinvest in that, or should I be taking money from, my current, work and putting it towards that, or should I create something new?
So my answer is both. Because at this point, I heard you say you are looking to retire in the next couple of years. And for what I think I'm hearing is the lifestyle that you want to live in retirement, you don't have enough yet to fund it, right? And so the IRA you want to put in place, and then you want to get aggressive about it because you got a few more years. But the first thing is figuring out, what do me and my partner need to live off of, right? What that is at the base, at minimum, meaning like what it is now, and then kind of an ideal, right? Because finance sometimes can suck the fun out of everything. And I don't like to suck the fun out. So let's just think about retirement is in the next couple of years. This is what we need monthly to live how we have been, or live how we want to live, right? And that's how we work backwards. What kind of investments do we need? What kind of investment do I need to make today to make sure that I'm receiving that tomorrow? Right. And so maybe that is setting up an aggressive IRA account. Maybe that also is looking into some other investments. And so investments by way of, sometimes you can get really creative and really sophisticated investment. In your case, it's time to dig in. A lot of people like to invest in real estate, and time is of the essence in your case. So I wouldn't say go out buying and flipping and doing all of this, but there's a lot of networking events you can go to meet contractors and developers and people who are always looking for capital in these types of things. So I've gone to a few and met with people and partnered with people, and they say, hey, I've got $5,000 you could use. I don't know how much they can, and they'll take it. And by the time they flip the home and sell the home 3 to 6 months later, I've probably doubled my money. They give me $10,000 back. That's another way. And then working with a professional, a financial advisor who will also invest your money in the stock market, in trading, something that will earn you your returns. We can see you a lot faster because we're not looking for long-term investments at this point. We're looking for something that can give us a quicker return and something that can grow the fastest. And so you and I, we can talk more if you want to, just to give you a few more resources as to what those type of investments opportunities are. But that's what I would be focusing on. Get my budget completely in shape, get all of my expenses clear about what I'm going to be paying, and all of my discretionary will be heavily going towards every investment that I can make, because I'm trying to shore up for my retirement so that I won't have to be concerned about money. And it's possible. It's going to be work, but it's very possible.
So I'm, part two of that question is, like, Peter has a pension from his job. He's a nurse practitioner, so he's got a pension now. And I think we're both going to be relying on Social Security, which I haven't tapped into yet. I just want to keep adding before I say, okay, this is it. So I think we're going to be okay, but.
But I'm going to say this also, Gary, even though you have that coming in, once you start, don't stop. Because you guys will probably have your bases covered, you know what I mean? But if you really get into investing, you can start using still some of that access to gain you more, you know what I mean? Or if anything you want to do in terms of, an asset or legacy building, or, just kind of planning for, when you're gone from here. Just working on that. You'll have the time because you're not working, and he'll be retired and you'll be retired, and he's got his pension and you both got your Social Security. And so whatever excess you have, it's like, okay, how can we multiply what we have? So it's still advantageous to learn about some of those things, some of those investments, and a lot of investments you can do from home online, and just use your excess money to get into them. And it really would be fruitful for you. That's really the name of the game today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this would be a good time to kind of move to, Charnese has been generous enough to make a special offer here for people who are attending this webinar. So Charnese, why don't you talk about what you're offering for people today?
Yeah, so typically I work one-on-one with clients too, and I build them out a budget template personally, and we usually do that maybe on an hour Zoom call. But I find that people need more than one session to really get this work done and build out a system for them. Because once the system is, half the work is done. You just have to work it. And so I am offering for this group only a bundle of 3 sessions at $100 each. And if you actually purchase the bundle, then you get your first session free with me. So that's a value of $200 for a $300 bundle. And so anybody that wants to get in touch with me, please email me and let me know that you want to take advantage of this. And I'll give you my budget template, and we can work through where you are now, where you want to go, and put together an equation for you to get there.
That's great. And I just want to say, I feel like it is often that part of the accountability and having someone look through. I love financial books. I read financial books, but I definitely have gotten stuff from this. So I just want to thank you so much for your expertise and your personal philosophy, which isn't exactly the same as everybody's. You can see here there's Charnese's email address on here. And of course, if you're interested in nonprofit coach services, this is our phone number and our email address to learn more about the types of services we're offering. But I really hope that you guys can take this as an opportunity. I feel like as nonprofit people, sometimes we're afraid to invest in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And, this is actually one of the things that Charnese helped me working through in my values, is looking at I'm really good at figuring out the investing in the other people, or how do we get something for the kids, or how does this benefit anybody who's working at my company or whatever. But when I think about wealth building or things that really supports me or my future, I get a little squeamish about it, to be honest. And I think that's how some of us can end up a little bit farther in our careers and go, oh, what do I have for my retirement or my kids' college education, or, a new pair of shoes. I remember my own mother, we were well-dressed children, but I remember the first time my mom really shopped for herself, and I was like, oh, that was weird. And I look back and I was like, why would it be weird? That should have happened before, right? So
memory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what they're giving. Yeah.
A part of your relationship with money. That's a pinpoint right there.
See, obviously I need more of Charnese's services. So please contact her, take advantage of her generosity and her time and her expertise. Thank you so much. I can't wait for other people to to see this as well and just get the value out of it, because the nonprofit sector is important and it's made up of good people doing the work, right? So you guys need your lifestyles funded as well, right?
Yes, you do. Thank you. I just want to say thank you guys for having me. Thank you for Elizabeth giving me the platform. Thank you all for listening and being such great guests. And I will leave you with a portion of all that you earn is yours to keep. Sit with that and do well with your finances, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a great presentation.
No problem. Thank you, Roy.
All right, see ya.